This episode of the Capital G Show has been brought to you by the Battletoads lore. It's just like the Mega Man X lore. It's about a 1-minute video that explains the history of the Battletoads. So if you're like me and this is one of those shows from your childhood, or if you just want to learn about them, check it out. It's in the description. Very good video. What's up, YouTube? Capital G here, talking about a card that I've been testing out in my Bujin side deck, and that is Divine Wrath. I learned about this card after I watched a deck profile yesterday of a guy who made top 8 at a regionals in New Jersey last week, and he was running 2 of them in the main deck, and I was kind of surprised at that. I mean, he was running Royal Decree, of course, but, you know, I've also had it sided against me when playing against Mermills, and let me just say that it's one of the most devastating cards to try and come back from, especially if you're playing a slower-paced deck such as Bujins or Fire Fist that usually don't keep more than one monster on board at a time. Just to be clear here, I am strictly talking about this card in the side deck capacity. You know what I mean? I think the card's role is going to be best coming out of the side deck. And you guys will probably immediately compare it to similar cards like Phoenix Chain and Breakthrough Skill, which are both great cards, you know, don't get me wrong. But the reason I like Divine Wrath right now the most is, for one, it actually kills the monster. You know, this is really important, especially when you start talking about bigger cards like Synchros or Exceeds, you know, cards with like 2600 attack plus. You know, that's difficult for Fire Fist to take down without, you know, using like a bear effect or something like that. Secondly, it's also spell speed 3. It's a counter trap. And in a world where we have no solemn judgment, Divine Wrath is going to get off. Like, it is going to be the be-all, end-all about 99% of the time. You know, 7 Tools of the Bandit isn't seeing a ton of play, and that's pretty much the only card outside of Infernity Barrier that I can think that could pretty much stop it. And it's not like Phoenix Chain or Breakthrough Skill, where if your opponent has a Lance or a Spellbook of Wisdom, a Pandemic Virus, which is a searchable card, or a Turtle, a card that you can dump straight from the deck, where you can just be like, ah, ha, 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 I don't care about that. I can just negate it, you know, and just keep it moving. But, you know, this card has even more benefits. Like, it can be used against all field effects, which is a huge part of this format. I'm talking about Crane and Honest and Turtle and Hare and Abystius and Megalo and every hand trap under the sun you can think of, especially now that people are bringing DD Crow back, in addition to the fact that we've been playing Maxi and Baylor for forever. So, I mean, all field effects are pretty much dominating the game right now. Divine Wrath is also usable in the damage step, and yes, that includes sub-step 4 damage calculation. So, you know, if you run a deck like me where you've got just like 4 honest shenanigans, I mean, at least you can curb that. Or if you happen to be playing a deck where they don't use a ton of battle phase tricks, you happen to run into a Mermill or, you know, Geargius, if you happen to just ram into a monster recklessly, and that monster happens to be a Linde or a Geargia Armor, okay, well, you can Divine Wrath that. You'd never be able to do the same with Phoenix Chain or something like Breakthrough Skill. And I know one of the biggest reasons people have always swayed away from this card is simply because it has a discard cost. And that discard cost can be hefty if you're not playing the right deck. But right now, there are some decks that can get around that discard cost pretty easily. You know, Bujins, for example, I mean, I will gladly pay the cost of 1 card, especially if that means that I can dump a Hare or a Quelin or a Centipede or a Turtle that may be, you know, stuck in my hand if I don't have my Yamato to get it out of there. If it means potentially negating one of your most powerful effects and keeping my monster on board. You know, if you're playing Mermill, it is so easy in that deck. I mean, you dump Tidal, you dump Gundy. I mean, those are both ideal situations. And you have to remember that Mermill Gundy, she doesn't care how she gets to the graveyard. She still triggers. She doesn't have to be discarded by a water monster at all like, you know, a lot of the other cards. And in Prophecy, the second that you draw a card off a Spellbook Tower, your Divine Wrath is essentially paid for. You know, that card is the card that just keeps on giving. So as you're drawing all those extra cards from, you know, the Spellbook Tower, a lot of them might be useless, and it's like, you know, find a way to make these cards effective. So I do understand that it has a huge cost, but it does destroy a monster. Those other cards can't say that. It can be played in the damage step. Those other cards can't say that. It's much, much, much harder to stop, and those other cards can't say that either. And I just feel like it's a really good card right now. It's also fantastic for breaking up those annoying Yamato locks with Kaiser Coliseum that I do to people all the time. And I say that because all you basically have to do is just wait for them to go to the end phase and activate Yamato, and then you just chain Divine Wrath, and it's like, they can't hit her, they can't, you know, they can't do anything. And then they lose their only Yamato on board, and it's in phase, so it's not like they can summon. It's like, oh crap, what can I do now? And you basically just get to swarm them without even having to waste like an MST on the Kaiser. So let me know what you guys think. I think it's a legitimate card. It should be probably looked at again from the side decks. And thank you guys for watching as always. Subscribing makes life happy.